Inside Nigeria. My name is Tion Joseph. This morning, for the first part of the show, I'll be reading the major stories from 5 different Nigerian newspapers. I'll begin with Leadership newspaper, the most influential newspaper in Nigeria. The lead story on Leadership this morning says 2023 polls. I'll be neutral as I was in Edo, Ekiti, Anambra, Osun since PMB. You didn't obey previous peace accord. Abdulsalami tells candidates, blames party spokesman for violation. You must accept the outcome, Jonathan. Atmosphere right for elections, says Security Council. That is the report we have on the front page of Leadership newspaper this morning. You can always find more stories on our website. You just need to go to www.leadership.ng and you will be served. Alternatively, you can grab a copy of Leadership newspaper at the nearest newspaper stand by you. Now, let's take a look at the reports from THISDAY, and the list says National Security Council. Elections we hold are scheduled. Police probing some governors for allegedly inciting violence. U.S. harps on peaceful, free, fair voting process in Nigeria. PDP PCC condemns attack on TV radio station in Rivers. That is what we'll be taking from THISDAY today. Now let's head on to the Vanguard newspaper, and the list says Naira protests. Governors under investigation for inciting utterances, says IGP. Presidential poll are held as scheduled on Saturday. National Council, Security Council says police other security agencies ready for the election. INEC chairman briefs Buhari on preparations. That is the report from the Vanguard this morning. Let's look at the Punch, and the list story at the Punch this morning says INEC distributes election materials as Buhari meets security chiefs. President warns INEC security agents against failure at over 12 billion naira security equipment. Now, to conclude the first part of the show, we take the reports from the Nation newspaper. And the list story says, why I seek your mandate to be president by Tinubu. APC candidate rise Nigerians. 155 North Christian leaders pledge support. Alake opponents will be shocked. And lastly, 4 parties, 5 governorship candidates back bid. That is where we will be putting a halt to the first part of the show. My name is Tion Joseph, and I crave your indulgence to stay tuned for the second part of the show. I'll be back your way 10 a.m. tomorrow morning. Until then, do have a great day.
For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word. sponsorship, and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
Good morning and welcome to the second segment of Inside Nigeria, the breakfast show where we discuss front page headline stories on some select newspapers in Nigeria. My name is Winifred Gwebo, and of course, as you can see with me in the studio is my Thursday guest analyst, also a political analyst, Olamilekan Adekunle. Thank you so much once again. It's always a pleasure to have you on the program.
And thanks to the management of leadership for picking someone like me to be here. I'm grateful.
Thank you so much. So, without wasting much time, not much ado, we want to take the front headline story on Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. Leadership 2023 polls, I'll be neutral as I was in Edo, Ekiti, Anambra, Osun, PMB. 2023 polls, I'll be neutral as I was in Edo, Ekiti, Anambra, Osun, PMB. We didn't obey previous peace accord after Salami. Test candidates blames party spokesman for violation. You must accept the outcome, Jonathan. Atmosphere right for election security council. As a matter of fact, security council met yesterday with President Muhammad Buhari chairing the session on the security put in place for this just 48 hours to go.
Exactly.
The presidential polls taking place on Saturday, February 25th, 2023. That is this Saturday. However, but information that we have got reports this morning that senatorial candidate under the umbrella of the Labour Party was assassinated, and his aides burnt to death. As we speak, and it brings to question, what about the army that was deployed to that zone?
Should I respond now?
Because it's the same thing in THISDAY newspaper. This day's headline story. As you can see, most of the papers have a wraparound, on a campaign. Incidentally, today is the deadline. Today, 12 midnight is the deadline for election campaign for the presidential post. So most of the papers today have a wraparound, what we call wraparound, on their cover. However, above the masthead of this day, we have National Security Council. Elections we hold as scheduled. Police probing some governors for allegedly inciting violence. US have some peaceful, free, fair voting process in Nigeria. PDP PCC condemns attack on TV radio station in Rivers. Yes, the same thing. So we are having situations of violence activities taking place in some of these states, and we also gotten reports that military or army has been deployed to these zones. Yet, what is happening?
I think to start with is to acknowledge that, okay, for me, generally and nationally, or let me put it this way, nationwide, it has been put to rest whether election will hold or election will not. It has been put to election will hold. And to some group of people who went to court this week and said because of fuel scarcity, the presidential election should be postponed. I think they should just try as much as possible to go and rest and allow us to have an election on Saturday. Then the pocket of violence that you mentioned, there is something that we need to understand when we are having an election or there's a period for a change of government like this. There are some individuals who are into politics who may have issues that are not political with some certain individual outside politics. And such individuals at this point in time now take a revenge kind of attack, like the one you are talking about, Labour Party senatorial candidate that was assassinated. It may not
born to death.
And it may not be a political issue, because in the state that it happened, I want to believe it is state controlled.
But many are fingering his alleging his also his opponents before coming an election this Saturday.
The issue is that how popular is that particular individual? When was it before now? What kind of business was it doing? Because it's now time for us to begin to interrogate people that go into politics that they may have committed.
But you know that many people are riding on this bandwagon of Peter Obi disobedient movement to
Exactly.
actually go into politics, just
But-
like many did during in 2011,
11,
2015,
Exactly.
and of course riding on the Buhari's
Popular.
popularity.
Exactly.
Buhari, President Muhammad Buhari has a cult following
Mhm.
right in the north, and of course, many rode on that to become governors today. Many whose political careers were dead before
Mhm.
they had their
Resuscitate their political career.
So the same thing is also playing out with disobedient movement. They feel that, oh, Peter Obi, let them use the opportunity.
To also catch the
Yes,
phrase.
catch the phrase. And here we are having the situation whereby the senatorial candidate for the Enugu was just
And for me,
less than
48 hours before, Enugu is not as hot as Imo. It's not as hot as Anambra.
Exactly.
That's why that individual, although I don't know much about the individual that was that, but what I'm trying to establish here is that beyond the political aspect that normally bring violence during the election, there are certain individuals who join politics who have grudges with certain individuals before coming to politics. And because of that grudges, those people take advantage of the environment or the politics to harm them.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to establish. So for me, it's now time for, maybe after this 2023 election, it's time for us to begin to interrogate beyond the political violence that erupt during political season, but also look at individual, what were they doing before now? What kind of people, what kind of person were they? Because it's also contribute. Because I don't see someone that will be have been campaigning for how many months towards the election, all of a sudden he was attacked. And before now, nobody knew about him, nobody knew what he was doing.
Exactly.
So we need to
Just
begin to interrogate that
life.
Exactly.
And which brings to mind, why is it that Adepolin, we see with this kind of assassinations taking place, it's always difficult for police to bring perpetrators to book. Why is it so? We've seen that all these political deaths, like talking about Funshaw Williams of Lagos State years back, where the perpetrators were they prosecuted, were they found?
I think they interrogated some people. The case was on, but nobody knows the finding, because when it happens at that level,
yes,
I won't say it was cover up, but at least the event after then will overtake it, and
exactly. We
everybody
also
will just
see
forget.
the case of this in Kogi State, that PDP
Woman that was also
Of
assassinated.
course, they brought some people. I don't know.
I think the people that were arrested that then have been sentenced. I think, although the case
just
few years in prison or so,
exactly.
we just
For
hope
a
that
case of that magnitude.
I will just hope there could be every sanction. That's why some people will call for capital punishment for such activities. But
Yes.
you know what capital punishment are received globally, and there are people who are against it, the NGO, CSO, who will say no, don't do it. It doesn't really stop that crime, but it also
It
aggravates the
serves
crime.
as a deterrent. Even the Almighty that everybody said always has also set the standard that whosoever breaks this, that's what various religions preach. So
Sure.
why would NGO say, oh, so somebody that commits such heinous crimes now should just be given a pat on the back, oh, go and sin no more? It doesn't make sense.
It's true, but
And it serves as deterrent.
detriment in our own belief, deterrent in their own belief, it doesn't work. Because
And strangely enough, with all these talks about against the movement against capital punishment, did they cooperate? Is the U.S. government, as anyone, remember when Oshomole approved the execution, and the UK government was taking to say, no, why must we talk to US? The US up to now is
they are
even
still
one that,
practicing it.
of course, that can even try a child
Child.
that is under the age of 14 years.
Exactly.
Keep him until while you go and the sentence for that crime. If he's dead, the sentence for that. US is like that. It has not been. Meanwhile, they are the one that is
pushing for
child rights at home, but they are not practicing it at all. So it's strange. So don't you think that a lot should be done to hold these perpetrators, to bring them to book?
The laws are there to really bring them to book, but the thing is that when it comes
or
to
do we really need, because before it was shut down, National Assembly was canvassing for tribunal to try these electoral act offences.
the election offenses
Tribunal,
it has been called for, but on the part of the government is the resources that we put into that. And again, there is no the judges that we have. You see the same judges that will be drafted into that particular sector again. So people are now looking at, okay, the resources one, then the personality, the staff is also there. So how are we going to ensure that we have enough? And that's where the wahala is for me. Although we're also looking at maybe when the next electoral act will be reviewed, this issue can be taken up again and be presented in a logical way. Because the side that many people are looking at is the resources that will be expended on it. And that's why I said there could be a jeopardy in the sense that we have other court have APD, Supreme Court, Appeal Court, High Court, and they're even saying that the Appeal Court can take care of it because once the tribunal who handle the electoral practice or electoral issue happen, they can also appeal it and take it up. But
and let it
end there. But the question is the resources. How are we going to expend resources? You know, it was also the same argument that was put when they said let us have a corruption court.
Because
And the people kick against it and say, okay, we can't be making issue of the judge. No. So that's why it died down.
If it's put there, and I heard it's to be something that would be very nice, but at the end of the day, it will not encumber the judges in the mainstream courts. You understand? Because like I was talking with a colleague a few days ago, I said no, these are medical doctors. You know, they also have their own medical doctor. They have their own special courts.
Exactly. Yes.
Tribunal. And even when cases, that is why you hardly hear their cases in this normal court.
Exactly.
But because the judges will refer them to, the doctors have their own tribunal. So they hardly, you don't normally hear.
Although the judgment that normally come from there are judgment of suspension, judgment of collecting your certificate, you cannot
suspension.
No, it doesn't really not too weighty. But on this one, you want an every sanction as much as
what I'm trying to say is that if this court tribunal is set for this election offenses tribunal, you see that even when such cases come out in this regular court, they are going to be deferring it, referring to tribunal that no, we have tribunal that is taking care of these cases. That is the same thing we are having for doctors. When cases come up because they refer them to the medical and dental tribunal that no, those doctors they have their own tribunal.
But,
so at the end of the day, it will free. It will even still free.
It will free, but the final thing that after tribunal, there will still be an appeal.
Yes. Okay.
From appeal, they'll go to the Supreme Court. So it is.
No, they can actually make it to end. Cases of
the governorship own, the Senate and governorship own.
It's only the
appeal court. Yes. But the issue
no longer goes
to the Supreme Court. But the issue is the resources that is still the matter. And you know, there was a time, part of it, they also put the whole heavy burden of it on INEC. And that's why I say one of the things that they have been suggested, we should have an agency or institution that will be registering political parties. Okay. There will also have an agency that will be taking care of electoral malpractice, like we have said, court. They will also have an agency that will also be in charge of voters registration, in trying to unbundle INEC. That INEC will only be responsible for conducting elections. Any other thing that is going to happen, those agencies will take care of it. But it is the resources that people are still talking about that will hinder the creation, establishment of this particular agency. Then another thing that we also discovered was that the personalities that are going to occupy these agencies will be appointed by sitting government. That is it. So if a tribunal comes up now and maybe the Court of Appeal president or the Supreme Court CJN will appoint, it's going to appoint from people who have grown from the ladder or from state court to high court to federal court, then to that level and begin to appoint them. So that issue of whereby the integrity of each individual is still much discussed. So those are the areas that people are putting up. But it's not a bad idea. By the time this electoral act will be reviewed, maybe after this election, I believe that by June, July, civil society will begin to look at what they can change in those particular and begin to present to National Assembly. Maybe we can now push it back again. But we must be reminded that it is the resources that is the key. If the resources can be taken care of, it's going to be a first line charge. The way INEC is receiving its money, the way other courts are receiving their money, it will be more better. And if the politicians will keep away from just appointing any kind of person or recommending any kind of person to the Chief Justice, that will be fine. But if not, it's not taken care of, it will just be zero-sum. And again, the way corruption cases have been tried, we don't expect that to happen at electoral tribunal cases to be tried. Because what happens in a corruption case, if it is a rich man, they'll give him a pat on the back. If it's a poor man, they send him to the gallows. So we don't want such to happen. That's why people are little. If you have this, it will just be a waste of time. The rich will be
a rich man will have a plea
bargain way of getting out of the issue.
Just give us some
of the loot or no, just surrender all the arms or whatever you use to commit. So why? So, but we can't throw away this kind of idea.
Because we see a situation whereby the Accountant General of the Federation was alleged to have looted about 100 and something billion. And the
129 billion.
129 billion. And there was a part on the back that he refunded only a paltry, just 50 billion of it or so. Then what happened to the others?
The thing is that EFCC they are still in court. That the man is not a free man. But we know how it happens here. Even by the time it goes to the court and the court expend action on it, you know the funniest thing? From the day, the amount of days the man has spent in Kuje or wherever they put it, they will add it. So that's why the likes of Yakubu and the rest of them escape, long-term judgment. And after spending less than 12 or 14 months in prison, they came out and they are free man and they can go anywhere and begin to talk about being sent or, that kind of thing. So we don't want such to be what will happen to electoral tribunal offenses court.
Thank you so much for your thoughts on that. Now, talking about leadership living story, once again, 2023 polls have been neutral as I was in Edo, Ekiti, Anambra, Osun, AMD. So, must we take AMD's words for it?
For now, we will take it for it. But after the election, everybody can change their mind.
You can take it to the bank.
Yes, for now, you can take it to the bank. But after the election, if there's any magomago from anywhere, nobody will. But we must give credit to him that during the Edo election, starting from Edo, Anambra, Ekiti, Osun, it was very, very fair. There was no interference. He did what he needed to do, and there was fair game. Although people understand it to be exactly, people understand it to be that, and there was no vote buying at that point in time. So the election went that way.
No, there was vote buying. No, it was alleged that there was heavy vote buying. Not in Edo, but in Ekiti and
Osun, there was vote buying. But at the end of the day, it all went the way of the opposition party who won those states, and even APC picked Ekiti state. But the question people normally ask is that, why is it that when APC lost election, people will say election is fair and free, but when APC win election, they will say it is not fair. Vote buying. Now, PMB have come out and said, I'm going to be neutral. So, our adventure, if the permutation of APC work for them, will people accept it to be free and fair election? Because that is a question that someone asked me on the sister station this morning, and I said, for me, I'll wait till Saturday. That
at
question
least
is very
with what he has done with these new notes too.
exactly.
He said to curb
electoral vote buying. But the game changer in this election is the Vivas.
Yes.
The Vivas will work
yes,
as
it is.
expected. Is the game
Because
changer.
when Nigerians are skeptical, like I was telling some, they call it 3 days ago. I said, no, Vivas is different. He said Vivas was used. I said, no, it was card reader that was used. Vivas is
card reader is different.
He said, yes, but it can still be manipulated. But there could still be human error, don't you think?
And the human error will come from the admin who pull those Vivas into configuration. The coded that has been put in place to ensure that extra votes that does not supposed to enter. But the way INEC have done it, they said it has been programmed in a way from their side, whatever platform they are doing, that nothing can enter it. And they also put in place, I take a admin that can checkmate hackers. So for INEC, they are ready. But the human, where people may get it wrong in Vivas is this. Vivas will not allow overvoting in a way, but human error can allow overvoting. Because once you have slot in your card, it take record of who you are and where you are, and it take record of how many people are accredited in that particular polling station. But the human error that will now bring overvoting is when those people will now come and thumbprint on the extra ballot paper that is left in that polling station and add it. And they are forgetting that what Beavers are taking is what will be recorded and sent straight to the INEC server. So that is where the human, and it can only be discovered when election tribunal starts. But at that point of submitting results, it cannot be.
One other thing that also, like, I'm worried about, because it's not electronic voting.
No.
Electronic accreditation.
Accreditation.
So what happens now, like talking about human error, thumbprint, and maybe a party that has already, Nigerians are susceptible to induce, some Nigerians are susceptible to inducement, that's why by these political leaders. And he says, oh, please, we want to thumbprint for social parties. Can those ones and those for
it will still happen in this election.
That's what I'm saying.
It will happen, but it will only be discovered at tribunal.
How will tribunal discover it? We are only accredited, but nobody can say, oh, this vote, the ballot box does not bear names, do they? So you could.
There are two means of submission of results. There will be manual submission, there will be electronic transmission. There is from E8, there is from E6. The E8 is the small one. Then the E6 is the big one. The big one is one you post after conducting election. You post it at the polling. Everybody will see the result of each of the candidate and their party. Then the E8 is the one you will not take along and take to the collation center. Now, those ones will be written with hand. If those ones will be written in hand, then it is those ones that will snap and send to beavers. Now, immediately. Now, at that point in time that they use beavers to collect the result, when they get to the collation center, nobody is interested in looking at beavers. What they're interested is the E8 from E8. Now they'll collect it from E8. So the human error that have allowed overvoting will use their hand to add the overvoting result to the one on paper. Now, by the time they now get to tribunal, maybe a political party is angry. They get to tribunal and say, let us recount our vote. Recounting the vote will now mean, okay, they will recount the manual vote, they will check it from E8, they will now check the beavers. If the one they have in from E8 does not correspond with the beavers, there is mago. And that's why
that's what happened in the
Osun State. And that's why they're still battling with it now. So that's where I said anybody can do whatever they do by manipulating, but by the time they get to tribunal will expose all the malpractices. Because at the collation center, if the collation officer, the PO, whoever is interested, bring your beavers, bring your from E8, collected it. They won't have time to be checking the beaver because already you have snapped it and sent it to them. You get it? Now the one you send to them, when they want to check the beaver, it is not that picture that's checking. It is the accredited recorded in the beavers, not the picture that the beaver snapped.
Okay.
How I got to understand all this, I was part of TME, Transmission Monitoring Group of Nigeria training for sub-step training for election observers and monitoring agents. Although I went there as a media person, so they were trained on how to understand the working of beavers and how election will be collected and calculated. So that's why I have this understanding of how it works. So when a political polling unit finish election, they take the result, they write it with hand, they snap it, forward it to INEC. But the beavers itself have a record of how many slotting of cards that enter. So it is that how many slotting of cards they will now use to check the corresponding figures in your from E8, in your beaver snap a picture, and the one recorded in the beavers itself. So whoever does anything wrong will be discovered that this thing is wrong.
The beavers is there
to review all these things. But it can only be gotten if they go to the tribunal. Because at the tribunal, they will not say, let us have a recount of the vote. So in recounting the vote, they will now discover there are multiple voting taking place in that particular polling station. They will not check it from E8, check it with Beaver's picture, they check it with Beaver's record. And that's how they will discover there is malpractice in the particular voting center.
I know that subsequently they will work on it and we can actually use Beavers for voting.
Although the Beavers himself is meant for electronic voting. So that particular coding that will allow electronic voting. And again, we must also educate our people, if you permit me. If you go to vote, once your card, your PVC is slotted, it 3 times it will work. After 3 times if it doesn't work, you have to go back and wait and come back.
And wait for a while.
And come back. And as it's snapping, it will snap you, it capture your face, your finger. So you must be ready to ensure that.
For some of us that registered our PVC many years ago, our picture don't look like us.
Again, your finger is there.
Many years ago.
Your finger, but it's still the main PVC card that we are having. So your finger.
And I still check for my unit. It's still there.
So it's your finger.
Very, very happy.
If your face, it definitely will recognize your face because it's the face capturing equipment and your fingerprint.
It's interesting. Well, we're moving forward now, and we are looking at the point. The point says INEC distributes election materials as Buhari meets security chiefs. You see, it's still on security. You can't undermine the importance of the value of security during these forthcoming elections. President wants INEC security agents against failure, hand over 12 billion naira security equipment. And of course, that also brings to my mind what actually took place in Edo State. We saw that how Edo youths themselves, or they are mobilized to frustrate the antics of these election breakers.
Exactly. Now, that is expected from everybody. Everybody is trying as much as possible to play their role. But for me, I've concluded in my mind that the best means of getting this election done is like having a peaceful poll, whereby everybody go to the poll finish voting, there's peace. After the result called out, there's peace. Then the government come and peace comes in. That's how I see the best form of election.
Yeah, but we can see that there's the atmosphere for this election is actually a peaceful one. It's conniver.
Exactly.
Like, it's not really that heated,
heated.
like we used to see
Mm,
in previous elections.
we can understand that from the issue of the two biting monster that we are fighting,
If not for
the cash crumb and the
inside-
fuel scarcity.
Yes.
Because you can't see that it's not everybody that politician can mobilize, and it's not everybody that's even willing to go to any political ground. And people are beginning to understand certain things that I'm not worth dying for any politician, and I'm not worth following anybody all around.
Exactly.
So what is the essence of going up and down with somebody that after 4 years will still come back with the same excuses of how you normally say in one proverb, they say, "Ajam Lokpa, it is my dog that killed it," meaning that it was my dog killed. And you'll be asking, after all the resources that was given to you as a politician to get things done, you are not giving us excuses. So people have gotten that understanding and a clear knowledge that politics shouldn't be a do or die affair in Nigeria. Simply.
Thank you so much. With that takeaway, we are going on a break. When we come back, we're looking at another program we have on our end. Don't go anywhere, stay tuned.
Dear Nigerians, your vote is your voice. Do not neglect it. Do not trample on it. Never exchange it for anything.
Vote wisely. Say no to violence. The power to create a big change is in our hands, and we should use it responsibly.
Yes, we have had enough. It's time for us to rise up and fight. Fight for our rights. Fight for truth. Fight for salvation.
Do not be intimidated. Your votes are valuable. Do not let anyone buy them or intimidate you into voting a certain way. In this forthcoming election, say no to violence.
Dear Nigerians, your vote is your voice. Do not neglect it. Do not trample on it. Never exchange it for anything.
Vote wisely. Say no to violence. The power to create a big change is in our hands, and we should use it responsibly.
Yes, we have had enough. It's time for us to rise up and fight. Fight for our rights. Fight for truth. Fight for salvation.
Do not be intimidated. Your votes are valuable. Do not let anyone buy them or intimidate you into voting a certain way. In this forthcoming election, say no to violence.
Thank you for watching. For sport.
Inside Nigeria, keeping you informed on what matters.
Welcome back. This is Inside Nigeria on Leadership Television. With me, this studio has been a political scientist and a public analyst on that name. It's also a pleasure to have you on the program, like I always want to say. And my name is Rudy Kwebo, your host. We are looking at the last paper we have on our menu, and that is Vanguard newspaper. Vanguard says Naira protest Governors under investigation for inciting utterances. IGP. Presidential poll will hold as scheduled on Saturday. National Security Council says police order security agencies ready for the election. INEC chairman briefs Buhari on preparations. Of course, the developing story to it is on the Supreme Court, which heard the case yesterday for hearing on the deadline for old naira use of old naira notes. So Supreme Court faces their verdict a naira redesign suit for March 3rd. Justices to decide contempt of court, jurisdiction, use of old notes orders. Apex Court's ruling on use of old notes side by side with new notes subsists, say SANS. However, President Muhammad Buhari says otherwise, and he says that governors are under investigation for inciting utterances. IGP. So, what do you have to say about this? You know, many Nigerians' expectations were somewhat dashed yesterday, going by the Supreme Court ruling for when it adjourned the case to March 3rd. And nothing was said about the use, whether to continue the use of old naira notes or not.
I think what the Supreme Court did yesterday was to take both parties' play, the federal government side and the state who are against the federal government on this particular issue, take both their side, and they said by next week or thereabouts they are going to take a decision. And for Supreme Court, what they need to go do is that they are going to look at the constitution, and basically they are going to look at the 66 items that federal government have power over. Which one of them is the currency issue? So they are going to look at it from that angle.
At which time the aim of the governors would have been defeated, they don't think March 10th.
Definitely,
the
but
presidential election would have been.
although their call is the suffering of Nigeria, so
Yes,
the suffering will continue after election, because some people are saying after election we'll see money. I said the problem that the policy have created within this short period is not something that will go on immediate term, because there are people who are taking advantage of the system, that have been the gaps in the system, to be making and exploiting Nigeria. So those set of people will not even pray that it work. Rather, they will expect it to continue even forever. Imagine previous people that are charging people over 40% of sharing your money with you.
Yes.
I met someone that almost cried yesterday. He was collecting 5,000 and they removed 1,000. He was almost shedding tears. People like that who are making money from such
10,000, 4,000.
4,000. They will not pray that it ends. They will pray that it continues.
Yes.
But that aside, but the key message is that the Supreme Court is going to take a decision, and they are going to look at it thoroughly from that angle of the power of the federal government on currency policies. That's what they are going to look at. And on another sister platform said it is now time for us to look at the review of our constitution, because people have been clamoring that this item that federal government have power over have shortchanged the governors from having also opportunity to do one or two things. And one of them is the currency. Why is it that it's only the federal, if we call ourselves a federation, why is it that it's only one aspect of the entire system that will be taking decision on the currency? It's now time for us to look at it and say, okay, what can we do when it comes to currency?
But is that
policy?
not how it's supposed to be? Because even in the developed climes where they also operate this kind of a presidential system, they only just also have one centralized body that is concerned with fiscal.
In terms of monetary policy.
In terms of monetary policy.
But the issue is that it is not done as an island, as a team, in a sense that they have to carry the stakeholders along. The state governors and the local government are they not part of the
yes, like I read the report yesterday that even the National Economic Council were not
involved. So
the decision was just taken unilaterally.
And the CBN governor is a member of the National Economic Council. So how much of briefing did they give them before now? I knew that this policy was supposed to come in 2017, 2018, but because of recession, they slowed it down and they didn't bring it up. But the problem people have is why this emergency 3 months before a general election?
Yes, this brings us to some speculations as well by some people, because given the fact that when President Muhammad Buhari signed the BIA into Act, BIA into BIA, and Act in 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
He suspended some part of it before and continued to pay subsidy, which he knew very well that it could, in fact, it affects their chances in the
coming election.
But we saw that 3 months after, he just came up with this another design.
Design.
He doesn't want to look back. Perhaps something may have transpired.
You know the issue of
And many people are attributing it to the primaries that took place.
because
How true is it?
for me, from the angle of
That
politics,
is
you
the
can't rule out
presidential primaries
you
that
can't
took place
rule
in
out
the party.
anything that would have
Because
happened.
this is somebody that, he budgeted we have spent about 9 trillion.
It will
For
end in
petrol
12 trillion.
subsidy.
Yes. You are
Exactly.
very correct.
He could do that, though, because he wants to help their chances in election. Then here you are, just 3 months to go.
And you now bring another policy that is
that could
triangulating
inflict
your party
exactly
from winning.
chances.
Although we
So what
can,
could have happened?
it's politics, but we can also point to it as he said in the headline that we want to be neutral. Maybe that could be part of a
Yes.
neutrality strategy to ensure that the issue of vote buying that most of us, I said earlier on the issue that people believe that if APC does not buy vote, they don't win. Maybe you want to prove a point to people.
Okay. And the IGP said governors under investigation for inciting utterances. The governors that are under immunity.
The thing is that I mean, it's not the first time the police will be coming up with this kind of statement that
And
the
nothing is
governor.
done.
The thing is, the man should just allow. We have heard and read a lot about governors are under investigation. Was it not the same people that said that we have been investigated? There are some governors that are whatever. It's not long from now.
EFCC?
Your EFCC own said that now. Have they come out with any governor? The thing is that they know that these governors are under immunity. That nothing can happen to them after they leave office. These are just statements to show that okay, they are working, they are doing something. Although they can go after the
because
small,
the IGP cannot say that they are not seeing trendy videos whereby these governors were speaking to their people.
Although they can go after the small flies under the governor, but they can't go after a governor. Even if a governor leave office, you know how it takes. It was only Governor Benga Daniel that suffered that fate after leaving office, that you have to go through this EFCC drill that almost send him to where he doesn't want to go. But at the end of the day, the other ones that were put into prison, they have been released recently. So to me, let's leave this one. It's not an issue that Nigerians should put their mind.
It's just empty talk, right?
Definitely. But if it's a poor man they are under, they will not even tell us. They will have put him in prison before they won't take him to court. So the whole issue about governors under investigation, good for it. It's part of the process of ensuring that we have a sanity in our environment or in our system. But we know that most of these cases doesn't get to the level that we expect it to get to. It just end up that we just like when you ask that, and the court cases that we were trying to bring up at election tribunal, Mapadi court. When I said if it is a big man that goes to that court, he will find a way to escape. But if it's a poor man, definitely will not escape the wrath of the law. And that's what we also see this kind of things that police will do, and we are investigating this person. After some time, it will just die. It is just a phrase for the media to carry, but beneath it, they can't. After they are all friends and foes together, so they should not deceive Nigerians with this. The governors are under investigation. Okay, if they are one thing I've asked is that if truly a one or two would have been mentioned in a particular state, we have seen that social things have been. They would have, even if they may not go direct, they can use geopolitical zones. In social, you know that this has been happening in this particular area.
No, was
sharing old money. And people will quickly get. But this one, you are just making an open thing that okay, and people will just it's just politics. It's part of the politics. And the IG really escaped the wrath of non-being because of the retirement stuff.
Yes, yesterday, there was a court process. Of course, this court, we know how it comes about. They can usually sponsor all these court processes so that
it will not fly.
Exactly, it will not fly, and for future people preferences too. And the EFCC, on the other hand, says deploying officers against vote buying. So how is it going to do that?
They experimented in Ekiti, and they also experimented in Oshun. But the few people they arrested, how far is the case? That's the question. But for me, it's not arresting the people, but not arresting small fries. Prosecute them to the latter, and don't do media trial. But after they put a case in a case to the court that in the sense that you have a grounded ground of a lot of proof to show that this person has committed this crime. Because when EFCC took these guys to court, there was not much proof that they were doing vote buying.
And the politicians and the EFCC on there is also saying that politicians are stockpiling old naira notes to buy votes.
Definitely, we can't roll out all this kind of schemes that is coming up. It's an election period. People are hungry.
But we did anyway because the old notes will still remain till April 10th.
Do you know the promise of the candidate? Do you know what they want to do?
That you can still submit it to Central Bank.
Then the promises or the notion of this candidate is that if any of them win, there will be a reversal.
Yes.
And
That
some
was
people
what,
are keeping the old
one
notes
of
for
the
themselves.
governors told it.
These people, and sure it will happen. Anybody among them that win will definitely do a reversal of the policy, because that will be one of the first things people will demand, and that will be one of the first things that make that particular person become an hero. I don't know whether you get it.
Yes,
in the sense that if you reverse such policy and it things flow back into the system and Nigerians have access to money and the banks are allowing it, then they will regard that person as an hero. Then the person that made that policy will be the devil. And that's how politics is. That's why you see that across state, you see a governor doing a particular project, and that governor will come and say, no way, that particular project, you won't continue with it. We'll go and start somewhere else.
Yes. Really, really is interesting. Just 48 hours to go. Nigeria decides 2023. Well, Lamileko, thank you so much for your presence here today. I also look forward to having your Saturday because wherever you are, I want you to have your contribution.
Definitely. Okay, if you people, I'll be in one of our sister stations.
Whenever you are free, you can just log in.
Definitely.
It's just virtual.
Okay, virtual.
So just want to have contributions from across the country.
I will do that.
Thank you so much. So my name is Winifred Ubego. Don't forget, same time, same station tomorrow is another date. I remain Winifred Ubego. See you.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.